Consider for a moment that there is a video game iceberg with all of the obvious advice on top. Make fun gameplay, write an interesting story, create interesting graphics. All of these things are obviously important to make a successful video game. But if we go further down, there is an extremely important part of game design that, while talked about, is often overlooked by indie game developers, and it can literally make or break their game. This is sound design, and it's, in my opinion, the most important aspect in making your game immersive. You can have photorealistic graphics, but if there's only music playing and no sound effects, I am instantly taken out of the experience. If you have unique graphics and a funky storyline and a ton of really interesting things going on, but still have lackluster sound design, I lose interest. This is what happened when I played Felvidek.
There's a real lack of sound effects, and that is what's really pulling me out of the game world. Even if you're using RTP and you use sound effects, it gets me very immersed.
Felvidek is a game set in 15th century Slovakia during a Hussite and Ottoman invasion, but you play as a degenerate alcoholic soldier who really misses his cheating wench wife who left him. It's a really unique new indie game that checks a ton of boxes. The graphics are fun to look at, the gameplay is satisfying and engaging, the story is entertaining and dramatic, the music is, oh my god, it's so good, and it has a lot of random strange events that add that amazing indie game flair of creativity and imagination. We need more games like this. They stick with you. They leave an impact. It's so much better than that mass-produced slop that's just meant to be consumed and discarded. But despite this, I still sometimes found myself disengaged and uninterested. Felvidek is an awesome game. So what happened? Well, for one, the game has a somewhat inaccessible writing style, but it was kind of fun and interesting to decipher. I mean, the humor, too, is pretty dry and doesn't appeal to everyone, but it certainly got its audience, and I enjoyed some parts of it. No, the main impediment to my immersion was the often lackluster sound design. Here, watch these clips. Now, you might have noticed that there is some sound design, so Mr. Toasty, what the heck are you talking about? Well, first off, Felvidek does get some things right, most notably the footstep sounds. They change depending on what you're walking on, and they're really quality sound effects, so they don't get annoying.
Now, I want to pause and give real kudos to the developer here, because when I first played the Felvidek demo, there weren't any footstep sounds, and it was a great addition to include them. Good call, developer.
But this is the bare minimum for sound design. Every game should have footstep sounds, bar none. I've got a tutorial for how to do it in rpgmaker, but this applies to every game, every engine, every genre. They all should have footstep sounds. It seriously, like, tenfold increases the immersion. Beyond just that, Felvidek does have sound effects, but it's just for weather or for interacting with objects, which is good. That is sound design, but it's missing the biggest chunk, which is the chunk that most game developers unfortunately miss. Ambient sounds that exist just as you exist in the world. Each of those areas that I showed would have, in reality, very distinct sounds as you just exist. For example, being in a forest should sound very different from being in a town. Here, let me go add some sound effects in post and let you see what I mean. Seriously, what is the benefit of not having water sounds in this area? Maybe I just have crippling autism, but it immensely impacted my immersion. Having more in-depth sound design instantly makes the game feel so much more alive, even if nothing in the game has actually changed. You're more effectively transported to that location because it sounds like you're really there, and it more distinctly marks each unique area, so therefore it makes exploring way more interesting and rewarding. The lack of ambient sound design just makes the game world feel dead and leaves the player disconnected. What makes the real world feel alive isn't just the sounds of you doing things, but it's also the sounds of other people and other things happening around you that you aren't directly influencing. If the only sounds come from when you're interacting with the world, then that makes it feel like you're the only thing that's real. So, how do you get better at ambient sound design? Well, once you've made a map, take a couple of minutes to look around and just think about what sounds would be present there if it was real. Or you can just Google that environment, and that'll give you some ideas too. Here, let's think it through, alright? You're in a modern shop. What do you hear? You hear people pushing carts around and just maybe talking to each other, people moving things around. You hear electricity, refrigeration, maybe some fans blowing. That's all I got for now, but you can go really in-depth with all this, and I don't think there's really a cutoff point. The more sounds, the merrier. It all adds to your immersion. I do recommend having sounds play louder as you get closer to the source. That way it's not just a constant, overwhelming noise, but honestly, it just sounds like reality if done right, and that helps with immersion. There's not really a point where it's like, oh geez, there's too many sounds, unless you're screwing up and putting in too many sounds that shouldn't be there. I'm not advocating for complete realism in video games. Only in the realm of sound design do I think it's somewhat seriously warranted. Suspension of disbelief can take you pretty far with graphics and story and gameplay or what. It can take you pretty far with those things, but with sound design, I mean, sound design is just so encoded into our reality that it's really hard to suspend disbelief that, like, you don't hear anything when you're walking. It just sounds strange. Especially in an RPG where you're trying to roleplay, you really need quality sound design to help people get in that headspace. Is your game a failure without good sound design? No, but it certainly enhances the experience. Now, you don't need to be anal and include every single sound. I was just kind of being dramatic to get you thinking, but you should have at least a couple distinct sounds for each location, in my opinion at least. If you disagree with me, leave a comment and let's discuss. That's how the real learning happens. Also, and this is really just me having played too many RPG Maker games, but Felvidek using the default stock RPG Maker sound options seriously took me out of the game world.
It makes me hurt.
Game developers, please just go to Google, type in X sound effect, find a YouTube video, magically get that into your file type of choice, and then put it in your game. It's like 5 minutes of work and it seriously improves your game.
Yet again, serious props to the developer. They used the default RPG Maker sound effects in the demo, but for the full release, they have unique custom sounds that sound way, way better. So seriously, good job, developer. Much respect to you for implementing that advice and changing things.
Felvidek could have been very impacted by the lack of quality sound design. My interest waned heavily while playing the demo, and for whatever reason it happened, I'd argue the developers saved their game by improving the sound design in the final release. In a last-ditch effort to show you the importance of sound design, recently I finished work on a video game trailer I was commissioned to make. I want to show you 2 clips, one without sound design and one with sound design. Here, have a listen.
Don't you want to live forever?
We will give whatever it takes to save Orphania, and all who inhabit it, even if it costs us our lives!
Don't you want to live forever?
We will give whatever it takes to save Orphania, and all who inhabit it, even if it costs us our lives!
I think in a trailer especially, it's easy to see how important sound design is to making an immersive experience. It's a really big part of what draws you in and gets excited to play the game. So hopefully those 2 examples make it a little bit more clear how important sound effects are, especially in your marketing materials. And hey, shoot me an email if you ever need a game trailer edited or anything else. I really love doing that kind of work. Anyways, obviously other stuff matters during game development. I just felt the need to be over dramatic with sound effects because I see too often a developer push it to the side or just not think about it, and it's a really important part of game design. That's it. See ya.